Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. And every Monday we always have ladies' night. Good evening, girls. How are you?
Hello.
Rough.
Rough. Kendall, I'm going to start with you. Just, do you want to put like an apology out to people about the crisps that you'll be eating throughout this as part of your hangover cure?
Sorry, everyone. If you don't like crunching or rustling, it's just me and I. I'm sorry, but it's the first thing I've ate today because it's the only thing I can hack because I'm 80-year-old inside.
feel free to do it. That's fine. And the reason we're starting at 6 is obviously because Mamma Mia's on the night and I want to watch it. So I know you're all looking a bit.
I thought you were joking, to be honest.
Well, no, David Attenborough's on first. Bank holidays rock when you get to my age. Believe you me, Kendall. You think it's bad now? Wait till you get to my age. You're approaching 50 rapidly, and things just go downhill. Family and that, you're stuck in the house drinking water. I remember the old days when I used to be down. I used to be down at Bank Holiday Mondays. Used to be down at Whitley Bay. God, drinking pink kangaroos for £4 a pint and. Oh dear me, how some wasted childhood and adulthood there, definitely. But I don't have the bad head tomorrow. That's the bonus. So anyway, on to football, and as always, plenty to talk about. Let's start off with the results since we last spoke, girls. We've had two friendlies, obviously, and Sav, come to you first. The positive is we've played two, we've won two. The negative, of course, is two bad injuries. One to Dwight Gale, and I've had a comment straight in from somebody tonight who says that Lee Taylor, he says he's just seen Dwight Gale today, still in the same situation as I mentioned the other night. He had a pin in his knee. It didn't look good. His leg was in a brace. He was limping around the Metro Centre. Didn't look good at all. So, the full diagnosis obviously, still hasn't been really released by Newcastle. But yeah, we lost him and we lost Dubravka. Positives are, unbeaten in the friendlies against lower league opposition, but two bad injuries.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sod's law, though, isn't it? It has to happen. And what I'm not liking at the moment is that the club aren't communicating with the fans at all. It's like Joelinton. I've seen things that it could be that he's in quarantine coming back or that his wife's had a baby, but the club won't confirm any of that. And there's so much secrecy around that we're not being told anything. And it's actually really frustrating. I mean, we have had two wins, but I think the last match, I think they only really scraped through. It was a typical Newcastle boring match and just scraped through. And we should be beating those teams by more than that.
Yeah, lower league opposition. I think we discussed this last week on the show, really, and it's just been difficult to organise the friendlies, hasn't it? But at least they've managed to get some. Stoke might be a bigger test, obviously, at the weekend. But yeah, I suppose it's all about just getting blowing the cobwebs out. I mean, it's only going to be like 4 or 5 weeks since we played competitive football anyway. So most of the lads should be still quite fit, Sav.
Yeah, they should be. I mean, they're not televising them, are they? You can't get a stream for the matches anywhere, so you only see what the highlights that they put up. But I've not seen anything like amazing. I mean, Andy Carroll's goal in the first one, that was pretty special. Yeah. But there was I think there was someone in the background spoke in Spanish, said that he wouldn't have scored that against a Premier League keeper or something like that. And it's just there's always some negative spin on it.
Yeah, well, that's Newcastle United supporters all over at times. I think, when there's a high, there's a high. When there's a low, we all like to have a bit more, etc. Maybe that's just football fans, but it just seems on Twitter, Newcastle fans in particular. Katie, same to you, really. How have you felt about those opening games, and how do you feel about the two major injuries that have occurred?
The games, obviously, it's a bit disheartening, the fact that this whole situation's happened and we can't go abroad, and we've had to go really lower league to play people. You can't really tell off highlights, and that's all obviously that you've got to go off. Andy Carroll scoring, I hope that gives him confidence. Obviously, the issue with him though is keeping him fit. Absolutely devastated about the injuries, and to happen so early makes me nervous because we will pick injuries up at the first part of the season, and losing them two is already a big hit. It just makes me nervous because we don't have anyone perfect that can just slot into their places. So I just think it's going to be a tougher start to the season. The friendlies they're a bit boring, really. To be fair, you can't watch them. You don't really know what's going on. You can't. When you do see the highlights, obviously it's not in stadium, so you don't have the great camera angles. So you can't actually really have a good look around, see what's going on the pitch and stuff. So I just want to get the season started now and see if the confidence from people such as Carroll is going to go into the actual Premiership. I know, obviously, that the chances are he probably wouldn't have scored a goal against the Premiership keeper like that. But if he's going in with confidence, that's better than going in thinking probably not going to get anywhere with it.
Yeah, Samantha, your thoughts on those opening games and, the players that, are now sitting in Derek Wright's treatment room?
Yeah, I think with Dwight Gale, we saw it coming, and it's so frustrating as a fan base. But one of the problems we have with Gale is not the fact that, he's not a good goal scorer with opportunities, it's that he's never fit. And we should have cashed in on him before this. And that's not his fault. I do think there's a player in there. I just think the rigours of the Premier League are too much for him. We're now in a position where we only have Andy Carroll. Do you play him in the next two friendlies? I mean, when he scored his goal in the last game, I thought we'll take him off. We had no one to bring on. I mean, you're already starting to decide who's going to play in that striker role that isn't naturally a striker. I thought there might have been more urgency behind getting someone in. There's not. Who knows what's going to happen? I think the most positive thing is that he looks like he's going to start with the back four. I think that's a better shape for us. He's going to give players a chance. We'll see what happens. It was good to see Jacob Murphy. He got the penalty. Do I think he would make that run in a Premier League game? No, I don't, because I don't think that he has the confidence for it. But you know what? It's good to have the squad together. Dubravka's an unbelievable loss. I think secondary to that, does he play Gillespie or Darlow? I would have thought Darlow would have been a shoe-in, but I'm not sure at the minute. I don't think either of them should necessarily be a number 2 Premier League keeper. I think people have spoken about Woodman. My case for Woodman playing is he played, 46 games in the Championship last season. It might have been his first real season of it, but he's coming off the back of a strong league. Motherwell for Gillespie, not sure about. Darlow just doesn't play enough football, whether the coaches like him or not. I don't think you can say that's the same as going into a Premier League setting. So we'll see who comes in. But I think at the minute, he is looking at his starting 11 against West Ham with what we've got. And it's frankly quite scary.
That is a big concern, yeah, and I mean it's not going to get any better. I don't think. The players that we're looking at are still loan players, and we still don't know what the budget is, but we'll come to that, I'm sure, a little bit later. Kendall, your take on those opening games, and did you manage to catch any of the the highlights, etc., and what impressed you, and obviously a little bit about the injuries as well.
Yeah, well, I saw the highlights from the first game. And obviously, in all fairness, getting back into it on that sort of level isn't what we need to be looking at. I think it would have been nice if I know you possibly can't, but it would have been nice if it could have been streamed and then we could have seen the game in real time to see, because obviously people were playing that hadn't played for a long time, i.e. Jacob Murphy in the second friendly. So it would have been nice to see how they are and what they're like now from after being away. So I think that would have been nice. Obviously, the injuries are a huge blow for us. Dubravka pretty much, Dubravka saved our season, basically. And he is going to be a massive, massive miss because even he shouts directions from the back line. And when he watches the game and you can see him, he's like conducting the game, he's directing it. And I feel like that is a massive loss for us, especially as Sam says, like you don't know who's going to be who's going to come in for him now. Obviously, as you say, Carl Darlow barely plays. I mean, I know he played in the cup this year, but that's pretty much it. And we haven't really seen enough of him for him to be like a solid addition when he comes back in Dubravka's place, because Dubravka is such a commanding presence. Like I just feel like it's going to be really, really difficult for us to lose him for however long he's out. I don't know. And then obviously Dwight Gale, we have no urgency in signing a striker. It seems we haven't even barely been like in the running for one. I'm seeing tonight that apparently we're going to there's a sort of a deal on the table where, not officially on the table, but we're going to offer Matt Ritchie back to Bournemouth for Callum Wilson. For me, I mean, I know Sav won't be happy about it, but for me, like, I feel like that's possibly a good move. Matt Ritchie, he used to be one of my favourite players for Newcastle. For his passion, he still is, but for his ability, I think it's probably a good move for him. And obviously it would help us massively if we had, an attacker coming the other way. But I think it's going to be, if we don't get a striker in the next few weeks before we start the season, we're going to be in dire straits already. And with the fans already negative and like no one's looking forward to it, it's just going to be an even worse nightmare.
The only blessing, I suppose, at the moment is we can't go and watch it. And by the looks of it, we'll not be able to watch it on television either. And that's the point which Byron is making tonight. Given the Premier League, BN, etc., being bombarded and lasted by NUFC fans on social media, she wants to know, do we think there's any influence to come to bear that we've not been included in the first month's TV broadcasts? I mean, Mad Mark as well, he says the same. Premier League definitely trying to put us in our place by not giving us any airtime when the new season starts. Proof this corrupt organisation will only serve the top six cartels. So, Sav, I mean, yeah, it's a surprise because Newcastle usually dominates the TV coverage in the Premier League, and I think that stems from back in the day when Vic Wakeland, who was a big Newcastle fan, used to be the head of Sky Sports, and he's not there anymore. Certainly not in that capacity. And is that a bit of paranoia, do you think, on behalf of Mark and Byron, or do you think maybe it does have something to do with Newcastle and their fans embarrassing the Premier League over the last couple of months with this takeover?
I mean, it could be. I mean, the posts that were going up on Twitter and things like that, it is suspicious in my opinion. And I've only just moved house. I've bought Sky Sports and I can't get out of it now for 18 months, and I'm fuming because I'm like, well, that first month I'm not even going to see a match on it. What's the point to it? Yeah.
I mean, I've never known an opening gambit like this, opening part of the season when Newcastle haven't been, included. So it's no wonder people are feeling a little bit paranoid. Katie, same question to you. Do you think it's a coincidence, or do you think maybe it's just they've had enough of Bruce Ball, they don't particularly want to watch Steve Bruce's team, and maybe our games weren't as high in the ratings as they possibly were in the past?
I think they're chasing ratings, to be fair. I think people who aren't a specific club fan but like watching football would probably choose to watch the top six. So I think it's a ratings chaser. I've never had Sky. I've refused to pay for it. So there's obviously alternative ways which we don't get into. But I think that a lot of people, obviously, because of everything that's gone on, will go down the route of thinking it's purely because of what's happened. And I could completely understand that, because a little bit of me thought, I wonder if that's because of everything that's gone on. But the chances are it's because they want the money. They need money. They want to get in. And I think it shocked a lot of people because obviously with lockdown, they have automatically assumed that every single match is going to be shown and that more matches will be shown. But the fact that you can't see any Newcastle match on Sky, it's just ridiculous. You need to be like, I was watching yesterday, the Toronto boys, and when Adam's on, no issue whatsoever in America to watch every single game. Yeah, you can't watch it in England when it's the English Premiership. It's just mental. But I think it's more a rating chaser, and I think it's just done because they want the money. Yeah,
I would agree with you. Samantha, are you disappointed or relieved maybe that Newcastle United don't feature in those opening TV games?
I don't particularly want to watch Bruce Ball, but I'm really frustrated, and I would like to see the trust asking the question of the Premier League as to why we are a club without a game. I think it's us and Burnley, maybe. Maybe that talks about the style of football, who knows, but I don't think it's okay for two clubs to be left out, and I think that's the question that needs to be asked. And you know, in these uncertain times, like everyone likes to call them, the government, the Premier League, you know, whoever is involved at whatever level, they know that the sport isn't going to be broadcast aside from those providers. So to put every single game for the top 6 on and then leave 1 or 2 clubs without anything, I think is completely wrong. And I think they need to be asked to justify why that is, especially with so many fans of those clubs actually paying for subscriptions. Whether we're now cancelling them or not is irrelevant. So I think there's a question that needs to be asked. And when we look at previous seasons, we've played crap football, but they've put us on because they think that we're going to get hammered by someone. And it's like this season, they just don't care. And that makes me think a little bit, you know, is there something behind the reason that they don't want to show us? I don't know. If there is, they need to hang their heads in shame, because that's a disgusting way to treat a member club. But I certainly think that the trust need to be asking them the question, why has this happened? I see one of the MPs has been, you know, very vocal about it, and I think there needs to be more of that, because again, they need to communicate the reason. And I would like the club to say something as well, generally about anything. But I mean, what do they expect? What is their view in line on their fans not being able to watch any of the games? You know, there should be something coming from them as well.
Kendall, disappointing, isn't it? You know, I think, you know, we've always seen Newcastle United. It's often one of the first games. You know, sometimes with a televised first game, we often get drawn against one of the, you know, the potential league, you know, title winners, and you know, there's never been an issue. But not to have one game is bizarre.
Yeah, like, I mean, as Sam says, for only 2 clubs to be left out and to not even have one fixture, whether or not the fixtures are exciting or not, everyone should get a fair crack of the whip. They know in the situation that they're in now, especially with Newcastle fans, that they're not in the best position right now. Everyone obviously thinks they're corrupt and they're doing this, that and the other. And whether or not there is a reasoning behind it, it's absolutely makes no difference whatsoever to treat a football club and the fans in general, whether or not the football's pretty. We know it's not pretty, and obviously us and Burnley left out makes a lot of sense if they want to show better football. Obviously both sides are well known for being very defensive and slow football, and it's not amazing to watch. But that, as I say, that makes absolutely no difference. To treat 2 clubs out of 20, fair enough if like 5, 6, 7 were left out, but it's not. It's 2, and it looks on them as if it's like choosy and favoritism, when in reality, like, there's only 2 clubs left out. I find it bizarre, and I don't understand why in the current situation that they're in right now they would do that. Because surely if they want this not to drag on any longer, and they just, you know, want Newcastle fans to sit back and ignore everything that's been going on, surely they would want us back on their side. So I don't really understand the whole reason behind it. I don't feel like it's there's any conspiracy theory around it. I just think the ratings aren't good. Obviously Newcastle fans are discontented at the moment with football in general. The majority don't like Bruce. They don't like Bruce's style of football, and we're not very good to watch now. So it doesn't surprise me that if they are going for ratings and money over everything else, that we have been left out, as I say. But I still don't think that should have been done. I think it's a really, really odd decision from them.
Yeah, good point, girls. Let's take David Crone's question, something a bit different. Hi, Steve and the girls. Good to see yesterday's show today. Toronto lads were great. Just want to ask the girls who they would like to take the 3 jobs on Soccer Saturday. So, Sav, who would you like to see replace the old guard who've all fell on the sword and departed? Charlie Nicholas, Matt Letizia, Phil Thompson, all gone. So, who would you like to see sitting alongside Jeff Stelling now?
Do you know what? I don't really know. And I was thinking about this the other day, because I think people are going along the lines of like trying to say that because they're sort of 3 older white men, that they've been pushed out and things like that. But I don't know, actually. I don't know who I'd put in there. To be fair, I only really like watching Alan Shearer on these programmes. Sorry, Katie. But and like Ian Wright. So I don't really know who I would put in there, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. Katie, what about you? Anybody, you know, any preferences for you? Big Al. It
No
would take a big
brainer.
money. It would be a big money deal, wouldn't it, from the BBC?
Huge money deal. I don't know. I don't watch it, so I actually have
Obviously-
no idea who I'd put in. But to be fair, I'd put Shooter in any position. Oh.
Well, you can't now.
On the
Well.
telly.
Well, I assume you
Right,
can now.
leave it to Sam.
Samantha, any preferences to who's sitting alongside Jeff on Soccer Saturday?
Actually, I tweeted about this, and it's the first time that I've got absolutely hammered by people on Twitter. So I kind of made a point about Alex Scott, because like the announcement was made, and all of a sudden she started trending. And I was away for a few days, so I had no idea what was going on. Started reading them, and people were like gunning for Alex Scott just because 3 guys lost their jobs. Not that she's been offered it, not that anyone had particularly talked about the fact that she wanted the job. Straight away, they put 2 and 2 together, got 400 million, and started tweeting absolute vitriol about her. So I kind of put out a tweet, you know, just kind of explaining her credentials, and, you know, that, you know, a guy that goes and plays pub football and goes and has a beer doesn't think she should get it because, you know, he doesn't think she knows anything about football. My Twitter went absolutely ballistic with the crap that I was getting back. So, I mean, I think she would pull in ratings. I think she knows what she's talking about. To be honest, I think we know what we're talking about, and we were never professional male players. I think Micah Richards is hilarious. I mean, he's just a new addition.
He's so
Like
funny.
the guy, there's a video of him laughing for like 2 minutes, and that was live on, you know, the Sunday program. So, I mean, people like that would be my shout. Alan Shearer would absolutely be my shout. Ian Wright. I don't think it matters about colour or creed or male or female. I think it's about someone that's relevant. And for the panel that was there, yes, I watched Soccer Saturday and I enjoyed it. Did I think it got a bit dated? Yes. Did I think that you kind of could almost line up what was going to be the talking points every week? Yes. They had good chemistry. But like with everything, the world evolves, the world changes, and you have to change with it. Maybe Sky could have done it better. Maybe they could have announced what was happening better and given the reasons for their changes better. But I absolutely think that, you know, they had a good run. It needs to be freshened up, and there's some kind of young, different personalities that I think would do well.
Yeah, fair enough. Kendall, what about you?
Yeah, same. I think 22 years, you know, football, the game, the analysis has changed so much in that time that I do think it probably was time for a change. And, you know, the chemistry, as Sam says, was amazing on the panel. And obviously Jeff Stelling's been doing it a long time, and he's going to find it really difficult to transition. But I think now the way football is, people are a lot more interested in statistics. They're a lot more interested in pretty football. They're a lot more interested in, you know, this sort of new style of football that Pep Guardiola, etc., has brought to the Premier League. So I do think it will be time for a better, more relevant, more modern view on things. Whether or not, I don't know who that's going to be. I'd be interested to see who it is going to be. I like the sort of style of, I don't know if any of you have ever seen, you know, Wenger, or when Mourinho was out of management and he was doing a lot on our arch rival beIN Sports. They were doing a lot of analysis on there, and their analysis was so in depth, and it was like, because I feel like every time I watch football, a lot of English pundits don't really know what they're talking about. That's how I feel a lot of the time. So I would love to see more a view like that, where analysis was looked at in depth and it was just, you know, more on that approach. But for the way that obviously Micah Richards and Alex Scott have been treated the last week when the whole news broke, I think is vile. I think it shows the current state of affairs that the world's in at the moment. And I think it also shows, because I saw Alex Scott getting the brunt of it, and I think it also shows, obviously, which was one of the subjects of our previous shows, that women's football is still not rated by a lot of people. It's still looked at as if she wouldn't know what she's talking about. She would make a good addition to the, the panel because she's a woman. She doesn't know our stuff, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous, because whenever I've watched her or anything, she talks fluently. She talks about the game really, really well. She knows exactly what she's talking about, and she's one of the most well-prepared pundits I've seen on the TV. And I feel like if she did come on and there was more diversity and more inclusion, the women's game, it would be helped massively, and that's what they want right now. So I think she would be a great replacement.
Yeah, great points all round. Had some good suggestions as well. What's going to cost? It'll cost them if they do this. They should get the ladies' night panel on. Definitely going to cost them
a watershed, that one.
Cost them a pack of crisps and water to get Kendall on at the minute. And a night out at Mamma Mia musical for me. Bill Burnett says Rob Lee, Alan Shearer and Les Ferdinand. Slightly biased there. Jason thinks we should go for David Icke. He would be a great replacement. Yeah, I mean, in amidst all of his other rants and raves, he might remember to cover the football. Funko Freddy says Steve Hasty, Gibbo and Supermac would be good. Yeah, Steve Hasty would be great. He'd be doing a big rant every now and then. Roy Keane. I've got to be honest, Roy Keane didn't like him at all as a player. Thought he would be. I think he's probably the most honest male pundit. Bas Dost, Gary Hoffman, and Richard Keys. Definitely having a laugh there. Davey Eddy says Jimmy Bullard would be kind of, yeah, I like. He's quite good as well. So it's all about opinions. We want your opinion on our Facebook page as well. NUFC Matters Facebook group. We're running a poll to see who you would want in goal. Now that Dubravka's injured, who would you want? And the options are simple: Gillespie, Darlow, or Recall Woodman, which has got quite a mention on last night's show. So Sav, who's your choice? Who do you want to see start in that opening game against West Ham?
Do you know what? I mean, I know he played in the Cup last year, but I didn't think Darlow did a bad job, for us to be fair. And I think I haven't, because they're not televising or there's no stream for the matches, I haven't seen anything of Gillespie really much. So, based on what I saw of him last season, Darlow.
Okay, Darlow. Katie, who gets your vote?
I don't know. I've been thinking about this since you asked on yesterday's show. Automatically, you go for Darlow because obviously he's coming. But Matt has Gillespie not been playing pretty much most games?
Yeah, and that's what the lads yesterday said on the worldwide show. A lot of people seem to think because Bruce has brought him in, he's going to be the natural first choice.
Yeah, it's hard. Neither of them have obviously had much for Prem play, but you not get that unless you get brought on. I don't know. I'm just going to have to go with, I think, Gillespie.
You're going for Gillespie, so that's one for Darlow, one for Gillespie, yeah. Sam, what about you?
For me, it depends how long Dubravka's out, but I would bring Woodman back. Reason being, we have tried to sell Darlow a couple of times. We thought about selling him to championship clubs, which shows his level. I actually said a couple of weeks ago, when we're thinking about the penny pinching the club needs to do, that we should probably have sold Darlow and brought in Joe Hart on a free if we had to play a backup keeper. Gillespie, I don't know. So, I mean, maybe I'm doing him a disservice. But I just think that this could be a prime opportunity to give Woodman games in the Premier League. I think he was good at Swansea. They got to the playoffs. Yes, he got injured, but I mean, he's 23 now. It's not like he's 17 or 18 years old. He's not a kid. He's 23. He needs a run of games. If Dubravka was out, until Christmas, for example, I think it would be prime opportunity to bring him back. I do think I actually can't call who he's going to start. And for me, I don't really have a preference because I don't particularly think either should be starting Premier League games.
Fair enough. Kendall?
Yeah, I do definitely agree with Sam, because I think at the end of the day, if you've just given Woodman a 4-year contract for him to be the next natural number one, surely now would be, I don't even know if we can recall him. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what the deal is with that. It would seem a bit crazy, really, to recall him if obviously there's two goalkeepers there, depending on how long Dubravka's back. But I do agree, because if you're given a 4-year contract to be the next natural number one, surely now would be the time to show that you deserve to be that, like, the number one next. Obviously, as we know, he's had game time in the Championship for the last couple of years. He's young. If that's going to be, you know, the next new talent, that would seem right now would be the time. The first few fixtures of the season are very telling, but they're also not massively crucial. So depending on how long Dubravka's going to be out, then 3 or 4 games, Woodman would have been my choice, but obviously he's already gone now. So whether or not we can recall him or not, I'm not entirely sure, but that would definitely be my choice as well.
Certainly recalling Woodman is the favourite option of most people voting on the Facebook. So give our Facebook a follow, and it's NUFC Matters, and just give us a vote. Let us know where you stand on that particular issue. Okay, we always have something a little bit different on the show each Monday night. So, you know, who's been your best captain, Sav, in your time supporting Newcastle United?
Do you know what? I think I might be biased, but Katie's going to hate me again. Alan Shearer. That time with Roy Keane, that was the most manly thing I think I've ever witnessed. It was wonderful. And I just think he was like a true leader. And he just sort of commanded the pitch. You knew that he was the captain. It was, you know, for me, nothing has ever, you know, matched up to that.
Fair enough. So I had to vote for Shearer then. Katie?
Oh, I wonder who. Obviously Shearer.
Yeah.
He was going to be a captain, and he probably would have been a captain even if they gave the armband to someone else. He was just that kind of character. He bled black and white. He loved that team more than probably most people watching. He was just a natural captain. I think he took over from Rob Lee, and he was obviously, Rob Lee was a lot quieter, and Shearer was more vocal with it. Absolutely, I think he's our longest serving captain as well. I just love him. You can't put a foot wrong, even when he gets sent off. Perfect. Doesn't bother me. Can't beat him. Definitely couldn't beat him when we ended up with Michael Owen. Don't know how that happened.
Exactly. Samantha, are you going down the same route, or you got somebody different in mind?
You know, I think for most of these questions, I have Alan Shearer, so I always try to think of someone else, knowing that at least one other person on the panel is going to have that. I have a couple. Nobody comes close to Alan Shearer in my lifetime. They just don't. And it was a different time for football, and he got away with so much more. You know, he managed to kick Neil Lennon in the face. Brilliant. Perfect. Loved it. I mean, VAR, I don't know how many of these captains would survive now with VAR, but back when football was football, you got so much more mileage out of your captains. Rob Lee was mentioned. I think he was good. He was quieter. I loved Kevin Nolan. At a time when the club was kind of on its knees, I thought he was fantastic, led by example, hat-trick against Sunderland, very badly treated by the club again. And more recently, Lascelles for me. Now, I think I mentioned it before, the last season, I don't quite think he's been himself. I don't know what's going on in the background, but certainly when Rafa made him captain, he was the one that kind of showed up and showed some personality to try and whip the team into shape. I didn't like Colaccini as a captain at all, and I know people did, but I did not have, he was great at bringing them around for barbecues and meals in his house and stuff, but I just didn't like him. So Shearer ultimately, but a couple of mentions, Lee, Nolan and Lascelles at the minute. Whether that changes this season, I'm not sure. Lascelles didn't play the last friendly, and nobody could really explain why when he played the one before. So I think it'll be really interesting to see if Bruce is going to kind of make a mention of kind of who's going to be captain this season, and whether Lascelles is still going to be a starting central defender.
Very thorough as always, Samantha. Kendall?
Yeah, Kevin Nolan was definitely my choice as well. I feel that team in that year, obviously when we were in the Championship, it sounds ridiculous because we were in the Championship, but it was probably my favourite Newcastle team, for all my life that I've seen, because that was the time when I was getting really, really interested in football and I was attending all of the games, and it was just I thought like the camaraderie between that team at that time and the relationship that the fans had with them was phenomenal. So Kevin Nolan was definitely choice for me, even though obviously he was only captain for a year. And I don't think he was actually the official captain either. I think Nicky Butt was the captain. And then Kevin Nolan sort of took it on after that. So, and I loved Chris Hughton as well when he was the manager, and obviously he was the captain to him. So that would definitely be my choice. And as Sam says, special mention to Lascelles as well, because when we were in dire straits, as we have been for the last 5-6 years, he was one who did the TV interview and said it's not good enough. The players are not good enough. We're not trying our best. We're not giving the fans what they deserve. And I really rated him since that point. And I feel like captaincy was what he was going for, and that's what he wanted. And he is a very natural leader, despite not being the best player in the squad, despite not even probably being the best defender. His leadership skills have been he has been off the last year or so, but they're phenomenal on the pitch, and he always gets involved and he always makes sure he's there with the referee when there's any, decisions being made, and I do rate him for that. But Kevin Nolan was definitely my favourite.
Yeah, I mean, Nolan's up there for me. Shearer, of course, number one. There's no better captain than Alan Shearer for all the reasons that you've already mentioned. Glenn Roeder, I suppose, for me, from my very first season supporting Newcastle, another man who led by example, great captain, good ambassador as well. So yeah, good one. Always have one of them each week. So anyone's got any suggestions for our topic next week, then give us a shout. We're going to talk Takeover. We avoided it like the plague, really, for the last couple of weeks. NUFC 360 put out Craig Hope's article from earlier on today. I mean, he's talking about the budget, a slight increase in the budget. I don't think any of us know what the budget is, but there was always a little line about the Takeover, and it's gone very quiet, Sav, hasn't it? It's and I keep saying, people are saying, you keep saying there's something going on in the background. Well, there clearly is. We haven't heard anything more from anybody. I'm quite happy it's gone quiet, because I've got a feeling that's, there's something going on in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy it's gone quiet because the stress levels go down. But no, I don't know if there's anything going on in the background. I'd assume so, because no one's saying anything. But then, there's not been, well, I'm going to say there's not been any statements released, but then there wouldn't be if it's being quiet. But, who knows? There's people going around saying that it's dead and buried and everyone's got to move on. But then if there's no sort of clarification of that, then you sort of assume that there might be something still going on.
Yeah, Mark Cooper suggesting that the papers are talking rubbish. I think you could be right. Katie, what's your view on the silence? Yeah, Northern Echo story. That's what it was. Northern Echo. I think it was the sports editor who wrote the story. He's now left. So that probably was his parting shot to wind Newcastle fans up. But yeah, it was a lot of noise, but very little substance in that story, I felt, Katie.
I've ignored everything. I ignored everything up until I logged on back onto Twitter to go and get the link for this. And as usual, Chopper tweets. So that's the only thing that I've seen. And he's clearly pissed off.
What was his tweet, by the way? Do you know?
I can't remember it. Someone will probably put it in the comments.
Does Mike Ashley even want to sell the club or something like that?
Yeah, so he said about Mike Ashley not wanting to sell the club. But then I think someone put a comment. I didn't read what they put. And then his response was, well, when they've got a deal on the table, they won't even speak to solicitors. So it's obvious that he's not getting anywhere with his little charade.
Yeah.
But I've ignored it all. If it happens now, I'll be happily surprised. If it doesn't happen, then I'm just going to continue to support the club and watch the games. But if something's going in the background, great. If it's not, I'm sure something will come at some point, because I need to get him out of the club. I don't know why I said I need to. We need to get him out of the club. And I think that he does want to go out of the club because he's excited to go and buy all of the businesses that have been hit because of COVID. But I've stayed out of it. It's given me a lot less of a headache, and I've actually had time to just look and concentrate on actual football, apart from the fact that I've also stayed out of all of the linkings, because every time I log on to Twitter, which is pretty much all the time, we're linked to a completely different player. So I think it'll happen. I don't know when. I never expected anything to happen this year. So maybe next year, we'll see.
Yeah, Samantha, what's your view on the silence? Do you think it's golden?
That's my belief. I think there's two kind of schools of thought on Twitter at the minute. People are asking for a statement, and they're kind of saying, look, the consortium, they need to come out and they need to tell us what's happening with it. And the first shot that comes back off them is, well, HIF released a statement saying that they were withdrawn from the process. And that is just a constant cycle every single day, the same argument back and forward. I like to think there's something going on in the background because, again, I believe that Mike Ashley has not come out and put a definitive, this is off, this was a waste of my time, anything like that. Journalists need to write articles to be published to keep their jobs, so they will keep churning out whether they have 5% factual or 90% factual. They'll take any little nugget, and it's amazing how you can see a headline, click on a link and realize that you've already read 93% of it at some other stage that it's been published. So my advice to people is stop clicking on things. Same as what you've been saying all along, Steve. We will know whether it's on or off with the next statement that comes out. It may bubble in the background for 3 weeks, 3 months, or longer. But I believe that unless Mike Ashley kicks off like he normally does when he gets frustrated, that there's still something happening in the background. And we can't influence it, and people can be frustrated at the process and frustrated at the MPs and for everything that's happened. But at the end of the day, the season's about to start. So let's channel our frustration into the players that we're not going to sign and the crap football that we're going to play, and just let the takeover do its thing in the background.
Yeah, fair play. Same to you, Kendall. Takeover is obviously, dragged on for months now, but silence at the minute. Possibly something going on in the background, and it's just time will tell, won't it? But it can't drag on forever.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like at the moment, and as it has been for the last few months until the official statement was released by, the Premier League, it's all just hearsay. It's complete and utter hearsay. It's through the media. It's through Twitter. It's through things like that, and none of us really knows what's going on apart from people involved. For me, I read today that apparently Mike Ashley has said that he is probably going to be the owner for another year, which doesn't sound good, but we know that he's been willing to sell the club for 10 years now. Whether or not it's going to happen, there's no point stressing about it because none of us knows if it's going to happen or if it isn't. I do think it's fair that obviously some people want clarity from the parties involved, but as we already know and are aware, public statements and anything played out in the media doesn't go down well, especially when confidential agreements are in place and things like that. I think the parties involved are probably sick of the chat around it and the journalists putting out certain articles, and I think everyone's probably just sick. So if it's going on behind closed doors, it's a lot better for us. It's a lot more positive news for the takeover in general. And I think I just saw a comment earlier that if Mike Ashley's rejecting another bid, he's obviously still holding out for the original PIF bid, which that will be obviously great news. And they haven't officially said, look, like that's it, we're not dealing with it anymore. They have said countless times again, and even Mike Ashley said countless times that the deal, if the deal can be resurrected, they would, welcome that. So whether it can or not, I don't know, but I'm just, as Sam says, I'm just ready to ignore it now and crack on with being angry about the season instead.
Yeah, somebody asking us about Lee Ryder. Do I get on with him? Yes, I do. Yeah, Lee's okay, although he's been very quiet. I've heard nothing from him at all in the last last couple of months, I'd say. And usually Lee is constantly on the phone to me, so not heard a thing from him. He's still working. He's still working at the Chronicle. Obviously, there's some journalists who have distanced myself from, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. Last topic, really, I think I wanted to come to today was supporters in the ground, Sav. Obviously, we've had this weekend, we've had a little bit of a taster of Brighton and Chelsea playing in a friendly. We saw it on television, quite a lot of coverage on it, and it's not football as we know it, really. You know, going in, you're obviously having to have various checkpoints and having your temperature taken, and at some places has to wear a mask, socially distancing within the ground. So 2,500 people sitting in the ground, and essentially, an atmosphere really which is akin to a reserve game. Would you want to see Newcastle United in that position with fans returning in that kind of way, or would you prefer to wait until everybody can go back, to St James's Park?
Obviously normality is what everyone wants, but I think in the respect of getting fans back, there's got to be a transition through that, or it's going to be. I mean, I was looking the other day; they were saying that they were hoping that things would be back to normal in 2 years. So if you don't have fans at the stadiums for 2 years, then, that's a huge gap. So I think, with respect to the fact that they can start to get fans going back to matches, it's great, but it does look weird on the telly, to be fair. And, hopefully, I mean, I just think it's going to be a step-by-step thing. Seeing full stadiums will be amazing again, but I think for now, it's just sort of, what they can do.
Mm-hmm. Katie, what about you? Would you like to see? Would you like to be involved in the lottery? I suppose of being picked out of a hat to go to a home game, or do you think that's is there a fair way to do it?
I generally don't have a clue how you would even start to think about how to do it. I mean, the only way that I could think would be to basically let them apply, but why should they? I think it's going to be tough, and I think it's going to be really tough because we're about to head into that season where everybody gets a cold. So when everyone gets a cold, that's obviously all of the symptoms to do with COVID. So is it going to be a case of the fact that they're going to let partial fans in, and then in a month or so's time, they're going to go, no one's allowed in the games at all? It's hard. I'd rather see the stadium full, but then at the same time, I think that if I was going, if I had a season ticket, I'd want to go and see some football, even though it's probably going to be shit. I'd want to go and see some football. I just don't know how the freaking hell they would even think to do it. I've seen all of the different things about doing odds and evens, which is just ridiculous, especially when you go with someone else. I just don't know how I would even start to do it. The atmosphere is obviously not going to be there until you've got a full stadium. It's hard with us because obviously the crowd is always our 12th man. So would we get that from about 13,000? Probably. We'd probably get a bit of a boost. But how the hell they're going to do it, I haven't got a clue. I would probably rather wait until it's full capacity again, because I reckon in a couple of months' time they're going to either reduce it massively because we are heading into the cold and flu season, or they are going to stop it completely.
Yeah, Samantha, what's your views on this? I mean, it's going to be so difficult selecting who goes. But I mean, I mentioned this yesterday. I'm not keen on going at all if it's going to be like that. It just wouldn't feel right to me,
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. And the one thing that kind of entered my mind, which made me laugh, was, do we really need Lee Charnley spending any time making these kind of decisions when, he's making all the club's decisions for everything? So, maybe that's something that's taken up some of his time in our very, very small structure that runs a football club. I think it's difficult to coordinate. I think it's difficult to decide. I think, things are so fraught at our club again. What's the atmosphere going to be like with the people that are in the stadium? It could be fine. They could be supportive. They might not be. It might be an opportunity to kind of vent a little bit of frustration again inside the stadium. So I'm really not sure. I think it's not going to be our 12th man. I think it's going to take a lot to sort out, as Katie says. I mean, we're coming into cold and flu season. You're then making decisions around kind of, is someone well enough to attend, and can they go with the people that they arrange to go with? I just think until it's at a level that is sustainable for a match day environment, then it should just be nothing and just let the clubs operate like that. The only struggle for that is going to be around what's going to be broadcast on TV and how fans can then see the games, and we already see that that's not working in our favour. So a lot to consider, but not. I wouldn't be beating down any doors to get more fans into the stadium at the minute, because I just don't think it's safe enough.
Kendall, what about you? Are you, are you keen to get back? Would you rather wait until everybody could go?
Yeah, I would definitely rather wait till I'd rather wait just till it's safe and it's a sustainable way to go to a match day. I don't want to have to be going to a match day worried about wearing a mask, worried about having to sanitize my hands, worried about who's sitting behind me or who's sitting in front of me. Like, I don't want that. I am a season ticket holder myself, and I don't want to have to go to a match day that I normally, I say enjoy, but I don't enjoy watching us. But like going to a match day with my dad and my brother, and like, how are they even going to sort out who goes? Like, if you get tickets and if they choosing certain seats, like, what if, for example, I got my ticket, I was allowed to go, but my dad and brother weren't? Like, I'm not literally going to go to a match on my own. I'm just not going to do that. It's just not fun for me that way. So I really don't know how they're going to sort it out at all. For me, I feel like if they are going to wait till it's more safe and plans are more in place, then I do feel like more games should be broadcast. Whether that or not that's profitable for them, I don't know. Maybe it's even like, I know you already pay for a season ticket, but maybe even reducing payments or stopping payments altogether if you can't go, and maybe even the club offering, like a service where it's a couple of quid a month to watch the matches on a weekend if no fans can go. There's just so much to consider. I really don't even know where they would start with it. But for me personally, I would just rather wait till this is all out of the way. And as Sav said earlier, they said it could be at least 2 years before this is even like a distant memory. So I don't really know when we're going to be allowed back in at all.
Talking about not actually allowing anybody to sing either, which again is strange. I mean, going to a game where you're potentially not allowed to sing or shout or whatever, I just don't know again how they're even going to manage that, Kendall.
That's what I mean. It's not enjoyable. Like, it's not a good atmosphere. You don't want to go to a game and where the football's already hard to watch. You don't want to have to go and have a rubbish time as well. I think it would just be in everyone's best interests for people to just stay away. If you can't sing, if you can't shout, if you can't, bully the team along, then what's even the point in going? Because that's what you go for. You go to, have the whole atmosphere. And I just think if they want to take that away, then for everyone's best interest, of course, then just stay away. That's what I think.
Dave Harrison makes the point, the way fans are cancelling their season tickets, social distancing should be quite easy. It's not far wrong. Jason Carter says it's as if the Premier League and Sky Sports are punishing us fans by not televising games, which is petty and childish. Ben's asking where Joe Linton is. We need him to start the season in 10 days. Now, apparently, I think it was his wife was expecting, or his girlfriend was expecting, and that's why he's been off. But then he's had to, basically come back and then quarantine, which is crazy. Jason suggests we could hum the Bladen races if we do go to the game. Andrew is agreeing with Kendall. Spenny Mag says it wouldn't stop him singing or shouting. Yeah, this is the problem. How on earth are you going to stop all of these people singing and shouting? It's absolutely crazy. Got 5 or 6 minutes left. Obviously, the season is approaching rapidly, Sav. And somebody did ask us earlier on. The name evades us there, but it was, how do you see us doing this season? And I really don't know where we start with this question, because it's not looking positive on the transfer front. We certainly don't look as if we're going to be able to sign a 20-goal striker. We've lost our goalkeeper, and Steve Bruce's clueless tactics, certainly didn't end the season in style. So, Sav, I mean, if you had to make a prediction at this moment in time, is it going to be a season of mid-table mediocrity, or we're going to be fighting relegation again, or we're going to be troubling the European spots? What's your view at the moment?
Well, obviously, I'd like us to be troubling the European spots, but the current state of affairs, do you know what? Without a striker, I can see us battling relegation. We play at the back. If we could finally get it up the front, there's no one there who can put it in the back of the net, and I find that really concerning. I've got a horrible feeling this is going to be a really embarrassing season for us.
God, I don't like the sound of that. I don't think it's going to get any better. Katie, what's your take on it?
I think we are going to bounce up and out of the relegation zone the whole season. And it's going to go literally down to the last bits, but it's not going to be us. It's going to be the other teams that will basically decide whether we get relegated, I think. I don't think that, essentially what I mean really is that we're going to get probably going to get relegated. If the other teams are worse, then they might save us from being relegated. It's nerve-wracking. It's all depending on what happens in relation to our upfront. That's where it stands to me. If we can get upfront sorted, we might get somewhere, but if we're not, then we're just going to be bouncing straight from relegation out of relegation out of relegation, I think, for the whole season. And it's just going to be one huge fight.
Samantha, are you going to cheer us up or not?
I like to refer to it as the race to 40 points now instead of a relegation battle. I think, goals win games, and we don't have goals in the team as it stands. I think it's going to be more positive that we'll play the 4 at the back unless he decides to revert. I do think we have a hard-working team, and I think that's what's causing a lot of our problems, because too many... I look at Almiron, and you asked the question in yesterday's show about Almiron. I just think his hard work takes away from him actually having a positive impact at the top of the pitch. And I think, we've got Julian that everyone drops too deep. They try to work too hard, and we can't have that many hard workers in the team that aren't actually positively influencing the play. He needs to sort that out. We need to have an out ball, and we don't have it. We can't be making runs from inside our own half every single time. So I think he just needs to be smarter about the way that we play. I think, same as Katie said, I think we'll bounce in and around. We're not going to pull up any trees whatsoever. If I was to make a prediction, I would say 15th, because I think we have enough to kind of have a go. But, if we don't get 1 or 2 strikers in, possibly a winger and a left back, it's a short break in the season. So I see more injuries, soft tissue, muscle injuries. And I looked at the bench in the friendly game. Actually, I looked at the starting lineup and thought, oh my God, that's potentially going to start in the Premier League. But then you look at the bench and you just think, I don't want to be bringing Atsu on in another game. I just don't. He's not good enough. There are so many players that they're just not good enough to bring on. So our depth is going to be our downfall. We'll get 15th if we're lucky, but that really depends on getting a couple of players in.
Yeah. Kendall, what's your take? How do you see the season going?
Yeah, I think it depends on a couple of things, I think. So firstly, it depends on what business we do. Therefore, if we get a striker, if we get a left back, because we need some quality in the squad. And as Sam says, our squad depth is very, very minimal. There's no, we have no impact subs, if you want to call it that. There's no one you can bring on and you're comfortable with them bringing on. It's always like, oh, why has he done that? Or why are they coming on for him? Or anything like that. So firstly, I think it depends on what business we do. If we bring in a striker, which is our obviously main focus right now. Well, it doesn't seem to be. It seems to be centre backs oddly, but it does need to be a striker. Secondly, I think it depends on what a couple of the teams who we see as worse than us, what business they do as well. Because if they start spending money, and if the newly promoted team start spending money to survive the Premier League and not get relegated in their first season back up to the Premier League, then we don't do any further business. I think we are absolutely stuffed, to be honest. I don't think we have any quality in the side to keep us there, especially if the fans aren't allowed back in, because as Katie said earlier, they are the 12th man. We are the 12th man in the stadium, and we give them that last push when we need it. And if the fans aren't going to be there, it's going to be even more difficult. So personally for me, I think it's going to be a 17th job, depending on the current state of the squad right now. I do think we have a little bit more than a couple of other teams, but that's me being optimistic. If you look at the latter half of the end of the season, we were absolutely diabolical. There was absolutely no positivity whatsoever with that sort of football. And if, you know, the sort of team and the tactics don't change, or we don't inject any quality into the squad or creativity, then I think it's going to be a really hard slog, and I'm absolutely dreading it.
Yeah, not a positive answer there. Whoever asked that question, I'm sorry. I can't cheer you up either. I do think it'll be a season of struggle. I will predict we'll get relegated. I did that last season and I was completely wrong. So yeah, I'll predict Newcastle to be relegated, and hopefully I am wrong again. But it doesn't look good at this moment in time. But of course, everything might change. Who knows? There might be positive news in the next week or 2 weeks, and suddenly everything will look a lot brighter. But at the moment, it's doom and gloom from the girls. That's it. The hour's done. I'm off to watch David Attenborough and Mamma Mia with the kids. Sab's going to go off and control the dogs. Kendall's going to go and sort a hangover out, while Samantha and Katie go and plot next week's show and send us over what we're going to talk about. Girls, been a pleasure as always. Have a good week. See you next week.
Bye.
Take care.